Brilliant. So, as I said, welcome everybody to the first webinar of the year. And the webinar today is all about our predictions for 2026. And today we're going to place our bets on where we see the future of work and learning headed and why. So I'm Cassie, co-CEO at Thrive, and joining me today is Ian, our head of customer impact, who's actually going to get us started today and share what you can expect from today's LinkedIn Live. So straight over to you, Ian.
Thanks, Cassie. You probably saw from some of the marketing emails that hopefully a lot of you have had, and good afternoon, good morning, and welcome to everybody. Great to hear where you are in the world. You can drop that in the chat as well. I always love to see where our people are coming from for these sessions. And in this session, we're going to look at a few different topics, and they're broken down into these sections. So workforce transformation and future readiness, human-centered and AI-enabled employee experience. AI is obviously continuing to be the buzz term that we're all talking about a lot. And performance flow and sustainable ways of working. And this is definitely going to be something we'll come back to a few times in this session today, about reducing friction, making it easy for our learners and our employees to engage in the technologies and some of the initiatives that you are creating in the world of L&D. And in connection, culture and purpose as a performance engine. We'll lean into this idea that whilst technology could be a great enabler, let's not forget that we are humans, and actually that human connection and collaboration with other people is just as important as anything else that we're doing. There's a few takeaways for you at the end. So we've got a white paper that goes a little bit deeper into some of these areas, so you can take that away and look at further reading. Some action planning, some guidance on how to get ready for 2026. And what I'm hoping is we can start to get a real flow of feedback from all of you listening to us this afternoon as well, and sharing your thoughts and your questions, and maybe make a few connections of yourselves along the way as well. But let's get cracking with some of the things that we want to ask and check everybody. So we just want to kind of make sure that this the feedback is coming in from all of you. And the first question is, what did you do in 2025 that you want to build on in 2026? And thinking about L&D initiatives specifically, how do those align with your business challenges going forward as well? So as I run through some of these that we know from some of the other customers that we've spoken to, it'd be great to get some thoughts from the audience here as well. The first thing that we've got on here is around strategic alignment. And when we think about what we're doing in the world of L&D, it's quite often it can be quite reactive. Trying to be more proactive and thinking about what we're doing, how does it align with those overall business goals, is again another thing that probably we need to focus more on as we go into 2026. We continually be responsible for changing business needs. If we think about what's happened over the last few years and businesses needing to be agile and change direction very, very quickly, the world of L&D and HR could be critical in that change management and empowering managers to be ready for all those things as well, and being those trusted consultants along the way. Measuring effectiveness. The holy grail of L&D is, if you do something, how do you measure the impact of it? And that continues to be something that we see people focusing on a lot more for 2026, and all of the reports, which we'll lean into in just a second, still has that as a recurring theme as well. And I particularly like this last bit, and again, for hopefully those of you who are sitting in the world of L&D and you're sitting in your L&D teams, and it says pushing back on training requests. I would like to think of it more as managing those training requests and making sure they are relevant and aligned with those business objectives and challenges that we're all facing. So what are we going to lean into a little bit more today? Well, we're going to leverage the Offbeat L&D Trends Map. And the benefit of doing this is it does a lot of the work for us. So it looks at a lot of different reports, puts them into categories for us, but looks at those timescales. So we've got human-centered organizations, human AI, synergy, learning organizations, skill-based organizations, lifelong learning, digital global organizations. The key thing is around those timescales and looking at those trends as they move backward and forward. And two areas that we're going to focus on in here today are things that have actually moved. So systemic thinking and digital twins. And they've moved from what was next into kind of now this year. So trying to think about what are we doing around this stuff. And one of the areas we want to try and look at is this idea of systemic thinking and seamlessness and reducing the friction from a colleague point of view of how they're accessing their different solutions. And that's why this idea of maturation of L&D's role from content provider to product manager. And when we are considering, there's probably two things. One is how are our colleagues accessing the learning offer or the programs that you're creating? And that think of it as a product. It's not just a single piece of e-learning. It's about how does that single piece of e-learning fit within the wider scope of that program? How do they collaborate with each other? How do they access the facilitator? Especially more so as we are still continuing in a remote and hybrid way of working or a global way of working. The facilitator might be in a different country, but how do you still create that connection of learning? And then this idea of a digital twin. So the digital twin idea is actually leaning a little bit more into the AI side of things as well, and predictive performance, adaptive learning. Our digital twin is basically the sort of things we might do in real life, but it's doing it in a digital format. So we go to the shops, we go buy some clothes, for example. We all could do that online. But by doing it online, it creates those kind of footprints that we can then say, well, if these are the things you're interested in, if this is the sort of stuff you're buying, if these are the things you're looking at, then we predict you might be interested in X, Y, and Z. And this has been going on a long time in the world of marketing and sales online. If we then apply that to the world of L&D, we can start to think of, well, if this is the content that you're looking at, if these are the things you're looking for, if these are the tags you're interested in, maybe we might predict that you might be interested in this role and therefore these learning paths, and starting to think along those sorts of ways. So your digital twin now is starting to maybe create those automatic and AI-driven learning offers in the future. So that's something that we need to perhaps consider. So one of the questions that we have is embracing the role as product managers. So we're not just creating those one-time learning interventions, it's the whole entire program, and how do we do that? So this is the question here. So this is going to be a good test for us now to then think about the engagement that we're trying to get from some of the audiences that we have here. But we've got a few different areas that we want to dive into. So the one is around adaptability. The next is then the flow, and then cohesion. And we can use these three pillars to help us when we're thinking about our designs. So if we take a look at the first one and we look at the capabilities that your teams are looking for to be adaptable and resilient, and looking at some of the reports, and some of those trends have actually played out. So we think about AI trust, agency ethics, and leadership. And if we leverage the Udemy skills report from last year, there's a couple here that I just wanted to pause on. And the first one is around decision making. Is still a big area that we need to think about. And the other one is around critical thinking, that problem solving element. And I think this is also important with the younger generation coming through, and actually making sure we're building in some challenges to create that skill about critical thinking and problem solving in our learning offers. But it is no real surprise that it's the AI topics that are the surging skills that most people are interested in and thinking about, and more specifically around GitHub, Microsoft Copilot, and building out custom GPTs as well. And it's certainly something we've explored here at Thrive as well. And it genuinely can really help and speed up a lot of that heavy lifting if they're built in the right way. So that's definitely something that's good to look at. Next thing is around reducing friction and cognitive load and siloed workflows so that people can perform at their best. And there's a couple of little thoughts here as well. And you can probably all recognize this image where there's always a lot of things. I'm going to ask Cassie a second in a minute. So don't turn anything off, Cassie. I will ask you the question of how many tabs you've got open, but don't close any before I come to your answer. But when we start the day, there's always so much going on. There's always a list in our to-do box. I think more and more people are using email as a to-do box, to-do list rather so than a communication tool. The communication tools now sit all the way around us, whether it be WhatsApp, Slack, and Microsoft Teams, and Google Chats, etc., etc. And what we find is we're switching from all of these things all the time. And there's more and more reports coming out about this idea of every time we switch, we almost have to restart that prefrontal cortex each time. And that is a tiring thing to be able to do. So over time, what we find is the quality of work slips, deadlines start to get missed, and ultimately we become exhausted. And it's no surprise that by 4 o'clock in the afternoon, we're just so tired. We've been constantly resetting our frontal cortex all day. And so this idea of we need to try and reduce that friction between jumping between one thing and another, and creating this seamless experience for people so it's not so siloed. And we've got some hidden costs to that fragmented work as well. And so this is constantly proven time and time again that we need to have more focused time, remove the barriers to be able to access information and learning in particular, and create this seamless environment for people. So the last part of this when thinking about design is thinking about a cohesive and high performing employee experience in this complex world. And again, pulling some from some of the stats and reports, is we have from Harvard, we've got one end where it's around loneliness, social increase in premature death. We've also then got the On-Boarder report, which talks about 94% of employees more productive when they feel connected with other colleagues. And I guess it's a highlight of how long I've been around, but I always tend to come back to Maslow and looking at that love and belonging, and that sense of connection and human connection in particular is actually a really, really important part of what it is we're doing. And the roles of L&D and HR have got an important role to play in making sure that those things happen. Whether you're a global organization, whether you are remote, whether you're hybrid, especially when thinking about learning solution, is how do you then bring those colleagues connected together around those things. So the point here is that the future operating model is not purely digital. It's about making it mix with the human element as well, making sure it's hybrid by design. We can leverage AI to help us to work smarter, to think about predictable, think about adaptive, think about doing some of the heavy lifting for us, but it doesn't replace that human connection and that human creativity over the top that we need around that stuff. But just before I hand back to you, Cassie, to take us through the kind of the how or what's our Thrive angle on this stuff, is the question is, how many tabs do you have open on an average basis?
That's a hard one because I've actually closed my all of my tabs for today. But yeah, I think likely across two screens, it's probably 10 per screen if I was to hazard a guess. But we're doing a lot more now to bring that into one sole place, which I'll talk about in a little bit. So that's definitely helping sort of change and better my digital workplace habits myself. But as Ian said, what does all of this look like in reality? How do we start to bring to life a more seamless and frictionless experience for our teams? It's all about ensuring your tools flow together. So, and to note, we say your tools flow together and not adding more tools, because more tools can cause more friction, it can cause more work. And it's about replacing or choosing the right tools, because when you choose the right tools, or better tools, that can equal better work. So step one for bringing this to life is really about thinking of your systems as designing experiences, changing your mindset from we need the system to speed up a process or to manage a thing to we need a system to design a better employee experience, to design a way in which we can enhance the work experience throughout the day. Too many organizations get stuck in stacking tools, bringing in new shiny tools without really thinking how they're going to work with each other or how work even happens at all. So that's why we've launched Thrive Hub, which you can see here and will eventually become the new Thrive homepage, taking your learning platform as your one source of truth to a whole new level. Think of positioning your LMS now as not only your learning platform that brings together content, resources, communication, but your workplace hub where work happens that brings together every app, every tool, every system. Suddenly, we're designing a whole new employee experience that seamlessly brings those tools, those tabs that Ian was talking about, into one place, creating a whole new space that actually starts to drive productivity and performance and save time. So that's step one of how we're bringing that to life at Thrive. If you go on to step two, please, Ian, it's all about AI. AI is everywhere. We can't avoid it. And I think we can all agree that it's no longer a hype or a novelty. It is really, really baked into our everyday. In a recent report by Globalization Partners about AI at work, they found that 82% of HR leaders have recognized that AI is essential to company success. So whether you like it or not, your people deem it important and they're already using it. And it's a core part of our general operating rhythm, or as it says, our daily operating rhythm. So we need to think about how we're building out that AI infrastructure for our people that we can both trust. Now, we know one of the biggest productivity killers is hunting for knowledge and resources that already exist. On average, an employee spends 520 hours a year searching for information. Now, when I found this stat, it really, really shocked me. 520 hours is equivalent to 70 work days, 8-hour work days, simply spent searching for stuff. And we know every organization is drowning in information. Our information is spread across different tools, different apps, our inboxes, our chats, different documents, platforms, intranets, AI tools, the list goes on. But it's no longer about where knowledge lives. It's about how fast you can surface it and how much you can trust it. And that's exactly why we launched Web and Federated Search in Kiki, our AI assistant, because we need to solve this time deficit. And our customers now have one place to get answers, no matter where those answers live. So Thrive brings together context from trusted sources that you choose so that it's accurate, it brings speed, relevance, and most importantly, that control that allows you to select what you want to connect to or where you want to pull from, helping teams move faster, make more informed decisions, and reduce that time to knowledge. And as Ian was talking about, removing any barriers to entry, really just surfacing that knowledge where you're already at in one singular place without having to switch between tabs or systems or tools. On to step 3. Now, as AI becomes more and more relied on, and as we saw earlier, our cognitive loads being hammered with information, notifications, content, and pretty much everything else that life throws at us, we're going to start relying and even craving more human experiences that stimulate us and our brains in other ways, in more social ways. So step 3 is that idea that you can start to leverage community and your colleagues as your performance engine. Now, we've been encouraging user-generated content for years and years and years. To some, it still might be a new concept. So we're breaking down those barriers to drive better collaboration. And at the end of our last year, we introduced social spaces to our customers, a place where your internal communities can thrive together. Think, pardon the pun there, think functions, resource groups, diversity groups, places where you can share interests, so much more. The possibilities are endless. But by design, this puts community and culture and comms at the heart of your offering, allowing your people to engage in sharing and connecting and flexing what they've learned in one seamless place. And to build on that, it's also a place where you can start to find and source and match like-minded mentors. We know that 50% of mentoring relationships fail due to poor compatibility, due to lack of chemistry, and due to lack of structured matching. So Thrive now solves that. It gives you a place to connect with the right people, to help you build the right skills, and most importantly, measure the impact of that journey, measure the impact of human connection. And this is what we mean by allowing your people to be your performance engine and drive development within your organization. So speaking of impact and performance a little bit, I'll hand back over to Ian now to share what sort of outcomes we can expect.
Brilliant, thanks, Cassie. And I think the idea of the spaces is a brilliant way of linking back to what we were saying before about how do we create the human connection within the learning offer as a product manager. It's yes, you might have a pathway, you might link it to a skill, but how do you then share those stories, even as a cohort learning, for example? So a space can be beautifully wrapped around or be included in those products or learning products that L&D people are creating. But also as an L&D team, sorry, Cassie, what were you saying?
No, I just said it's how we make it stick, right? Sharing it with colleagues and being able to flex what you've learned. I think, yeah, it's really how you make that knowledge stick.
Absolutely. Um, you mentioned about impact, and I said at the beginning that this idea of measuring effectiveness is still a recurring theme. And this was again just pulling some sources here. And when we look at the from 24 to 25, we see that showing value is on the increase. And interestingly, learning analytics was on the decrease. And actually, I might eat my own words eventually, but I can see that trend actually changing and thinking about learning analytics, but more specifically, how are we tying learning analytics to business outcomes or business impact and making that story make sense? Because you can't increase value if you don't know what you're necessarily measuring it against. So I do think those two things will continue to increase as well. And the good news is, again, here at Thrive, that's absolutely what my team is here to do. I'm head of customer impact, and that's the focus that we have of working with our customers and understanding what does that value proposition look like, and then how can we back that up with the data and help you tell your story. And this is something we've been doing for a number of years. And if anyone wants to look at our history and look at the website, you can see all of those stories that we have going on there as well. And we expect to do a lot more in 26 as well. So taking on board everything that we've spoken about here this afternoon, as we think about the action plan, thinking about the next 12 months. And when thinking about those learning offers and interventions of what it is you're doing, is first do that discovery, do that diagnosis of what is the problem that we're trying to address. What difference will it make if we do it? And what difference will it make if we don't do it? What are those killer metrics that we want to be able to move or measure against? Then you can start thinking about your build, take in mind all of those things that we've spoken about today, thinking of all the different touch points, making it seamless, one single point of entry, but then making sure you've got all the different human elements built into it as well. Make sure you put in some measures along the way. Make sure you're checking it in. Make sure it's actually doing what you set out to do. And once you're happy with it, you can then think about scale. How do you broaden that out? How do you maybe create that as a blueprint and roll it out to other programs and those sorts of things? And that's just the high level. The good news is that we've got the links to the white papers where you can go a little bit more in depth around all of these things as well.
Yes. So we've just released our brand new white paper for 2026 on the future of work. And a lot of the themes within there we've covered off today, but it's really about one idea, one theme, which is work doesn't need more tools, it needs to feel more seamless. We break down why friction is quietly killing performance, what people leaders can actually do about it in the next 12 months. And it's all got practical thinking around it. So it's a really actionable resource that we encourage you to download today. It's free to download. Our marketing team will put the link in the chat for you. So yeah, really, really recommend downloading this read and going to a little bit more detail around what we mean by seamless, not siloed, and how we as people leaders, as HR and L&D can start to design and build out these really seamless employee experiences.
Yes. So in summary, and a couple of takeaways, and we've got a few minutes, so if there's any questions in the chat or anything people want to ask to either of us, is this idea of seamless and not siloed. So thinking about the future work requires uniting AI and people. I think there's a worry or a fear that AI is going to replace kind of people and things. For me, it replaces tasks, and it then allows us to then explore, well, what else can we do, and how do we use the extra time and opportunity that it gives us to do other things that can drive businesses forward. Thinking about the L&D shift from content, or just content, I should say, to experience and design, and thinking about that as a product manager type thinking. Focus on adaptable skills and that systemic thinking, thinking things that are linked. Again, just to repeat what Cassie was saying, it's not about more tools, it's about the connectivity of those tools and making it easy for employees and colleagues, and reducing that friction for better employee performance, kind of linked to the same thing. But underneath all of that is then don't forget that connection, the human connection, the collaboration. However it is your organizations are made up, still is an underpin between everything that we should be designing around it. And that's our summary. So thank you very much for joining us and listening. And then we've got, if there are any other questions in the chats for us to pick up.
Oh, we are right on time, Ian. 2:30. Look at
The
that.
way I roll. My team, if my team are listening, they'll find that hilarious that we're absolutely bang on time. Absolutely love
I have a question to get us started, and I think our audience would love to hear about. We're talking about all of these themes and what we deem is and what we believe is going to be really important in 2026. Out of all of this, what are some of your customers most interested in? What are some of the stories or themes or trends that they're looking to build on this year, or they're looking to roll out within Thrive and work on?
For me, the conversation at the moment is probably around spaces, actually, and how do we wrap that around learning experiences, um, and encouraging people to kind of share their thoughts. One of the customers that I'm working with at the moment, they've got a brilliant idea around it, which is it's actually a classroom event, and they are encouraging people to then take photos of the event as it's happening and then post that out afterwards. And I think that's actually a
Yeah,
brilliant way, because the reason why using sort of photos of events is a really nice and good way to sort of just drive interest and engagement is whenever you get the link of somebody's wedding or the event that you went to, you're going to click on it really fast to kind of say, oh, what does that person look like? Oh, I remember meeting that person. And actually, that's a really great way of driving the engagement initially, but then you start getting that chatter going of, oh, that was a really great session. I really enjoyed that. And then that facilitator can then sort of drive that from a um, following it up with it. And what was your takeaway from that session? What have you implemented since that event happened? And it starts to create that community environment, come back to that connection. So I think there's a few people exploring spaces and what that can do and how that can be embedded into those learning programs. So I think that's definitely going to be a strong trend for us, certainly across Q1 and beyond.
yeah, I love that. That's awesome. And we're even seeing it adoption within our customer base as well, using spaces to talk about roadmap and how our customers can feed into different features and items on our roadmap for 2026. So that's been really cool to see how our customers are also getting engaged in social spaces, in different areas of our platform that they're most interested in building out, and actually contributing that to that themselves as well. That's been really awesome. Brilliant. I think we'll probably end it there, Ian. For anyone that has joined us on YouTube today, or anyone that hasn't managed to catch the session, Ian and I are going to be sharing a lot of the similar themes on a webinar next week with the Learning Technologies group. So you'll be able to catch us and ask us any questions then. But I think for today, all that's left to say is a big thank you for joining us. Thank you, Ian, for hosting the session today. Our next LinkedIn Live is on the 28th of January. It's going to be with one of our customers, Banner Time. They're going to talk you through how they design their employee experience and how they keep their deskless teams active and engaged with learning throughout the year. So do catch us and join us then. But unless you've got anything else to say, Ian, we can wrap up.
Just thank you again to everybody. Have a great day.
Brilliant. Thank you, everyone. Have a brilliant day. Bye.